Greetings and welcome. My name is Aaron Craig with Let's Learn This Together, and this is part 6 of creating a beautiful inventory inside of GameMaker 2.3. This video specifically, we're going to be showing how to draw information from the item that we're hovering over in this description box. The way we're going to be tackling that is creating the item that we hover over and then having that item actually draw its own information. There are some drawbacks to this approach, but for the most part, it works very well, is very flexible, and is a lot easier to maintain because every single item in our game actually has its own object with a create event, and we can change the information inside of there. So instead of having to go into a DS grid or an array trying to find that exact item, we can actually just change the stats here and they are reflected everywhere, which is really cool. If you want to see a different approach to this, check out my advanced course where I do one large DS grid that covers all of the information that every item can possibly have. It is a little more complex, but also a little more flexible. And be sure to stick around to the end for details on my beginner games course giveaway. Now we're going to go ahead and create one more object, and this is actually going to be the item parent. So I'm going to say obj item parent, and I'm going to create and all data. So inside of the item parent, we're going to have all of the things that there could possibly have. And that means that there's going to be a fair bit, so I'm going to full screen this. And the things here, I'm going to set to undefined to start. That way, if we have an error, we'll know that we forgot to set it in that specific item, and we'll be able to go back and change that real easy. So something that we're going to want is a description. And I'm just going to go ahead and copy, I'm going to copy this whole equals thing so I can just type out the name. So damage equals undefined, defense equals undefined, health restored. These are all properties that this game's items could potentially have. The more properties and things that you want your items to do, you can just add them right here. I'm not going to cover actually using these items because that's very game dependent, but I'm going to show you how you can set it up so that you can start to use them. So ailments cured is undefined. We can also have things like a speed boost. I don't think any of mine do. I'm just showing things that your game might possibly have. Mana changed, energy changed. And then they're going to have some specific drawing data. So things like our type, name, and price. So these are things that actually get set in our DS grid, and we're going to set them for the item when we create it. The other thing we have to know is if we are in our menu, which is going to be false, and if we should be showing our detailed info, which is also going to be false to start. Now, where we're going to be drawing all of this is on our sprite, which is our description. So we actually need to figure out how much we can draw from side to side. So we want to eliminate a little bit of the edge here and a fair bit of the edge over here. So in our item parent, we're going to have our text width equals sprite get width SPR description, and we're going to subtract 60 from that. And then we're also going to eventually be drawing some icons, and we're going to draw them at 0.4 scale. So I'm just going to put that there for when we do start drawing the icons. And that's all we need for our item parent in the create event. So let's go and actually create some items here. Now, I'm not going to do all of these items because it could take a very long time. So go ahead and do these yourself. I'm going to do a few of them just to show you that they are working. So the description here, specific item attributes. First thing, you need to inherit the event, and then we're going to set them here. So the description equals legendary armor worn by an awesome hero. And then the defense of this is going to be 100. Health changed equals 50. I'm setting it up so that if you want, you can also do like negatives. So if it's something that is a detractor, it would be a negative value, and that would still work totally fine. But the changed value means that it's giving that to you or taking it away. So here, the energy changed will actually be negative, let's do negative 10 because it's so heavy. So Actually, yeah, that's all we'll do for now. We don't need to do a whole lot more than that. We might add some more later, or I'll just bring in some objects so that we can do it, but I don't want to waste too much time on that. The other thing is we need a draw event inside of here. Now, each item is actually going to be taking care of the draw event, so we need to put it in the parent, and then we don't want to do anything in the actual specific items. We're just going to have them inherit that. But to make sure that they do inherit it, let's go to item parent, parent, and we can actually just drag all of these into the children category, which is really cool. So now each one will take care of that itself. So let's go back to the drawing now. Are you ready to start making the game of your dreams? Then head on over to letslearnthistogether.com to check out my trilogy of courses to take you from beginner to expert. Game development is hard and frustrating when you're going at it alone and you don't have anyone to turn to. Join me on the journey and I'll be with you every step of the way to alleviate all of that frustration. And by the end, you'll be ready to make any game you can set your mind to. Go ahead and get started now at letslearnthistogether.com. And the first thing I want to do is draw self. Most of the time you're not going to actually see this, but we are going to implement some drag and drop inventory management. So we're going to need to make sure that we can actually see the item when we need to be able to see it. Now, this is info for when displaying description sprite. So if is showing info is equal to true, then we're going to do that. And then we're going to have another one down here, and this is going to be the price, and this is always going to show up when we do this. So if is and menu is equal to true, and I'm trying to format my if statements a little bit different, but I keep forgetting. So this one is going to be the price. So we're going to set the color here to sea orange because they don't have a gold. We're going to set the font, which we haven't actually made any fonts yet. So we're going to have two fonts. We're going to have a smaller one and a larger one. So I'm going to go ahead and create a font smaller. And this is actually going to be a fairly small font because our game window is so small, we're blowing it up a lot. This looks pretty small, but it's going to be totally legible. I'm going to go ahead and choose Mana Space because I really like this font. It's like old retro gamey. It's pretty cool looking. I'm going to create one more font larger, and we're going to choose Mana Space one more time, and this one is going to be size 12, so not a lot larger looking, but it still is a fair bit. So that's the two fonts we need. Let's go back into the draw event. So now we're going to set the font smaller. Fonts matter, makes total sense. Then we're going to draw the text of the price. So draw text ext camera X, camera Y, plus 390, name plus, and then we're going to say is worth, surrounded by spaces, plus the string of our price variable, plus space gold each. And then we have to, and then we're going to also draw the separation. So that's the whole part of extended. So now we can set the separation, like each line should be separated by how much, and the width. So the separation here is actually going to be font get size of the font we're using times 1.5. Then the separation we're using is sprite get width SPR inventory front minus 20. So not the text width over here because that's going to be for the main description. This is actually just happening on the front of our inventory. Now, we haven't actually created any objects yet, so let's go ahead and move into actually the OBJ controller here. And we're going to come up here above clicking on an item. And we're going to say draw item info. Now, if instance exists, and we have which item it is inside of our DS grid, so we can actually just check to see if that exists. So my items, item.object is equal to false. So if it doesn't exist, we're going to create it and then allow it to draw things. This also takes care of the whole depth issue, which can be a big problem if you're trying to draw on the same layer, which is why in our room we're going to have 2 layers, and this one is at depth 0 and the instances is at 100. So everything drawn from the items which we create like this, current item equals instance create layer, and we're going to do this outside of the room, and we're going to make it on menu items. That way everything it draws is above the instances layer. We're doing it at my items. The objects we're creating is my items, item.object. Now current item here, we're going to make this variable down here, or up here, current item equals undefined. And now we just need to set some of the properties for the item we made so that it knows what to draw. So current item.price, which we set, equals my items, item.price. Current item.type equals my items, item.type. And this will be useful for when we are drawing the button of either to equip the item or to use the item. Now type turns red because it is now a keyword, but it's a constant for when you're using sequences, but it doesn't cause an error when you're doing this. But you should probably change this to something else in your actual project, just in case down the road they do make it more of a keyword that you're not allowed to use. So just keep that in mind. Current item dot name is also now a keyword, so you got to be careful with that one too. But I already have it working in here, so I'm just going to keep on using it. So item dot name, and then we just set item dot is in menu is equal to true. And if we are showing a description when we create this item, then we tell this item that we're doing it. Current item dot is showing info equals true. And now we are just about ready to do it. You may have noticed a small mistake I made. I actually put the drawing info for the item parent inside of the obj items. So I'm going to right click, cut that event out, and I'm going to place it inside of item parent where it belongs. And now if we run it, we won't get an error that we're trying to draw a non-existent sprite. And now when we hover over our legendary crystal armor, it's right there. So as soon as we go away from it though, we have a problem because none of the other variables are set on any of the other objects we create. And that's because we need to actually set event inherited on all of these. So event inherited, copy that, just going to come in and place that on each of these so that we don't get a crash. Now if we do try to draw info or anything else on any of these objects, then we're going to have a problem, but we should be able to come in and at least move around on these. So you can see that it's starting to pile up, and that's because we need to actually destroy the objects as soon as we're done with them. So we come over here, we create them, all of that is fine, but then as soon as we leave, we want to either destroy it, or if we're making another one, make sure that we only ever have one. So right down here, I'm going to say ensure only one item exists at a time. So if instance number of obj item parent is greater than 1, then we're going to destroy all of them. And that is fine because we can destroy all of them, and then we're still hovering over that object that we just created, and it will make it again. So it's totally cool. Now let's try it again. We hover over this, and there we go. So now each of these actually have their own price, and we can see that it's working just fine. And if we come off, we don't have any errors, everything works great. If we bring this up, nothing happens because we don't have any drawing information for it yet. So let's go ahead and do that next. Let's open up the item parent, draw event, we'll go full screen here. So we have it when we're drawing just in the menu. Now we want to actually draw some info over here as well. First thing we're going to do is the name. So we're going to set the font to font smaller. We're going to set the color to red. Then we're going to draw text extended. This is going to be camera middle X plus 60, camera Y plus 120. The name that we have, separation is going to be 20, and the text width plus 15 because it can go a little bit further than the description can. Let's try that out. So we should start seeing the name of the item. Open this up, and there's nothing here. But if we move over, oh, there it is. Look at that. Okay, so it didn't appear right when we wanted it to, and the reason for that is because we're not actually setting that we are showing info on the item that we make the sequence start. So let's go into our controller. So we create a sequence when we click on it, but by that point, the item's already made. So that means we need to actually do current item.isShowingInfo equal to true in our step event. So I'm going to copy that. And at the end, when we are showing description, and so we can just say if instance exists, obj item parent is equal to true, then we set it equal to true. Because remember, this actual if statement is going to continue to trigger unless we were to destroy it or make it so that sequence was undefined or something like that. But that's okay. We want the sequence to actually stay there. We just need to make sure that we aren't trying to set something that doesn't actually exist. And now if we run it, it should work exactly the way that we expect it to. We click on an item, and then it starts showing the name. Perfect. That's what we wanted. I think we can move it down just a few pixels, but that looks pretty good. So I'll move it down 125. Okay, now we'll do the description. So we're going to do pretty much the same thing. We're going to set the font here. This time it's going to be font larger. We're going to set the color to black. And then we're going to draw text extended, camera middle X plus 60, camera middle Y minus 75, our description 20, and text width. Now up here, I'm also going to set draw set alpha to 1, just to make sure that these always come in properly. So there's a lot that we can draw in here, but I'm not going to do all of these by hand because I think it's a little bit too much. You can see that these are drawing undefined because we haven't set them, but these are coming in correctly, and I think that looks pretty cool. So I'm going to go ahead and copy over the attributes and just kind of walk you through them because I feel like there's just too much and it would be a little bit waste of time because once you do one, that's pretty much the exact same thing. So what we're doing on these attributes is drawing a sprite, which is an icon at a place I think called gameicons.net, and they are just really great icons for free. You can use in any of your projects. They come in 64 by 64 sizes, which is why we're drawing them at a 0.4 scale. So we're drawing the icon, and then we're going to draw the text next to it because I think visual indications register a lot faster for a player than just reading a bunch of text. So when we hover over our armor, it is clearly showing that it provides you 100 defense. Now the rest of these don't have anything, but that's okay. We haven't set them up yet. And then we just do that for each one. So damage, defense, health restored, mana restored, and you can keep on adding more. These are all if statements because we want them all to trigger, because they can have multiple properties. The other thing that we have in here is the ailments. So I'm going to come down here. Our items can actually cure multiple ailments. And the way we can set that up is by going into, let's say, the blue jelly. And let's come down here. Let's give it a quick description. Mana restoring elixir. So it can do that, but it can also cure ailments. And what we're going to do is have this as an array, a list of ailments it can cure. So let's just go ahead and give it all of it. So it can cure poison, drunkenness, and confusion. So it can do all of those. You pass it in like that, and then this system goes through, it draws a sprite for each ailment icon, or it shows a sprite for the ailment icon, and then for each one in that array, it draws what it can cure. So let's take a look. This jelly can cure each one of those, which I think is really, really cool. So you can have as many ailments cure as you want, or you can just do 1 or 2. It doesn't really matter. And then the last thing after ailments is going to be the buttons. So we have armor, weapon, and consumable types. So I'm going to draw a sprite right there, depending on which one it is. And obviously you can have a lot more types than that. But for here, you can see there's our equip and there's our use ones. I think it looks like it, oh no, we set up the type already in the DS grid. So each one of those is actually working exactly the way we would expect it to. Now, currently, it's really hard to actually come down and be able to click on this. And if we click on it, it doesn't do anything. But we're going to set that up later to where we can actually lock an item in here. And then we can hover over stuff and it doesn't change it, which then makes it a lot easier to use. But that's just being able to actually draw everything that we want on there. And there you go. That is drawing everything. I know I went over this really quickly, but you'll be able to download the finished project from the description, so you can just grab that and compare it, but you'll probably want to actually draw your stuff instead of mine anyway. So there you go. And that's all I wanted to do. That is the system we're using to display information, and I think it works really well. I haven't really come across any bugs or problems in it yet, so if you do, let me know. Otherwise, I think this works great for any inventory system you want to do to be able to show information from specific objects. On every GameMaker tutorial and video I put out from here into the future, I'm going to be giving away 1 copy of my beginner game developer course, a great way to go from no programming experience to be able to make your own games. To be entered to win, just like the video and leave a comment showing me your keyboard works. You can leave a comment about anything. A week after the video is posted, I will send you a message with the coupon. If you want, you can use it for yourself, give it to a friend, or apply it towards a more expensive course by just sending me an email and letting me know that's what you'd like to do. If you want to see more content from me, then subscribe and ring the bell to be notified every time I put out a new video. But that's all I've got for you. So thank you so much for joining me, and as I always say, keep making, keep learning, and I'll talk to you later. A huge thank you to all of the awesome people who support me over on Patreon. Their names are on the screen now, and every dollar pledged helps me create more awesome content. You can support me for as little as $1 a month and get access to exclusive perks like my Discord server, your name in the credits, early access to my YouTube videos and courses, and more. Check it out at patreon.com/letslearnthistogether.com, or find the link in the description below and become a patron today.